Scientists have finally realised something that we already knew. Earth is coated in ancient space dust that could be from the moon, and they're talking about helium-3, which I'll get to in a sec. And that's because we already knew from the Enuma Elish, which talks about a planet called Tiamat getting smashed up by 4 moons that belong to another planet called Nibiru, which was the Anunnaki's home planet. Now, Sitchin seems to think that Kingu was one of the moons of Nibiru and ended up, after Tiamat being smashed up, Kingu ended up being our moon after it was already Nibiru's moon. Now, there's another version of this, which I kind of lean more towards, and that's our moon was part of Tiamat when it got smashed up, and so is Earth. And so is the asteroid belt, which would make sense why we've got the same dust as the moon. And helium-3, they're talking about here, wouldn't it be good to mine it? They're already doing it. This person doesn't like the idea that I have a Patreon page where I put videos up that they would have to pay a couple of quid to watch, and those couple of quid would cover all the videos that's on there, which is about 6 days worth of videos that I have to sit and edit, etc. So I lose days each time I do a video. But this person's happy that I have a website that I have to pay for out of my own money to allow people to watch thousands of videos free of charge on that website. So this person's saying that my knowledge should be given away free of charge, just like a professor does. You know, when a professor goes to work and gets zero money for it. Oh, no, wait, they get paid, sorry. But this person doesn't understand that the actual information is already out there. I'm just collating it. So I'm not withholding information. I'm just smart enough to put it together and give it to people that want to know it without having to go and look for it. Cave of Bones is a TV series on Netflix, which I did a short video a while back, and I said that I don't think that the burial that the scientists are saying is actually a burial after all. And that's because I noticed straight away that the skeletons of the ones that are not buried was the same depth as the ones that supposedly were buried. In other words, they all died at the same time, but one supposedly buried. And even then, it wasn't actually deep. It was like an inch or so off the top of the ground, which led me to believe that the mud, sand, silt, dirt, etc., possibly from some sort of flood in South Africa, flooded the cave, which is why cave divers had to literally crawl on their hands and knees to get in, compared to the species that back then would have been able to walk in. Anyway, mainstream science has kind of agreed with me here in this paper. They're saying it doesn't quite make sense. Satan, I believe I can tell you who Satan, or should I say what Satan was. This is based on the Book of Revelations and the ancient texts that I study. And if you don't know who I am, I'm the actual guy that's told you who and what was on Atlantis. No one's told me I'm wrong. Thousands of people have watched that video, tens of thousands. Who and why Stonehenge was built. I've also told you what these granite boxes are for. Again, 0 debunks, over 1 million views on these. So with the Book of Revelation, what you'll find is they've collated, people have collated all the, shall we say, destruction ancient texts and converted them into one book where it's Revelation, which means the dates are well off on these ancient translations. In other words, some of the things happen way back and some may come to pass. And I'll be explaining all of that on my Patreon video. Finally, someone's going to tell you about the Book of Revelations, who Satan was and what end of days actually really means. And that's going to be put on my Patreon page called Our True History. And there's already many videos already on there, but it was coming on there. Now you're going to think, well, hang on a minute, how does this guy, out of everyone, know what he's talking about? Well, let's look here. The woman, the child, and the dragon. This is in Revelations. So when you realise that the dragon, and this is proven in my other videos, is a comet with a towel. Once you know that, let's read this. Then a great sign appeared in heaven. We know that's space, proven in the word heaven is space. A woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and on her head was a crown of 12 stars. In other words, celestial bodies such as, this is probably going to be a two-parter, such as planets the Anunnaki used to call deities, which were alive. So you can see where we're going with this. She was pregnant and was screaming in labour pain, struggling to give birth. Then another sign appeared in space. The Book of Revelations, this is the second part of these videos, and this is just hinting at what's going to be put on my Patreon page, which is called Outro History. So once the video's up, I'll let you know, but I'm proving here that the dragon meant comet with a tau. So let's carry on reading where we was. Then another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 diademed crowns. Now the dragon's tau swept away, tau, comet, swept away 1/3 of the stars in heaven and hurled them to earth. So we can kind of guess that it definitely is a comet. Then the dragon stood before the woman who was blah blah blah. However, let's have a look now at modern science. They're saying that they've come across a comet and they said it has horns, just like rocket hitting the dome, hitting the firmament, which really was just the gap between atmosphere and space. As said way back in ancient texts, when the only people that's ever mentioned firmament could actually see the firmament, and that's because they went through it, because they were being taken up to heaven by the Anunnaki, and heaven being space. However, 8 billion of us now, all these people that seem to think there's a firmament, not one of us has seen it. Funny how only the people in Mesopotamia saw it, but let's forget that side of it. So this rocket here, I'm debating with this person saying, look, for you know, a few centimeters it carries on past this dome that it hits, and this person saying no, it doesn't. Now this is rocket traveling at 3,580 miles an hour at 73 miles up in the air. So let's have a look at a rocket that's going a lot slower than that when it hits an impenetrable object, in this case Earth. Obliterated. So now imagine this rocket, funny enough only one of a kind, because last year there was 186 official documented launches into space, and obviously there's no rockets shown hitting the dome then, so this one's a few years back. So let's have a look now at disintegrating at 3,500 miles an hour. Ready? Ding! That's it. That was it. Obviously you're all laughing now. I know. Somehow this aluminium rocket, or whatever it's made of, is strongest material on this planet to survive 3,500 miles an hour hitting straight into an impenetrable dome. But let's forget that and then wonder why it carries on just being weightlessness. Right there, rocket engines are not going, it's weightlessness. Now you could say, well, it's actually coming back down to Earth and therefore it's you know, just sitting there. Now for it to be weightlessness, you would need to be 125 miles and up, whereas this was only 73 miles. So the point is this really hitting a dome, or is it people being absolutely stupid on this planet and then people getting... no wonder why Bill Gates wants to wipe us all out. So are you telling me that when my car hits a wall, I need the same material that's built into this rocket? Because... if this rocket at 3,000 miles an hour hits an impenetrable dome and just goes ting, then I want some of that material. Come on, people, grow up. Oh, you're going to love this. So this is the rocket that supposedly hits a dome. There's only one rocket that hits a dome. And I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind, only because it's very simple, and it's a very simple trick how they got round to make it look like it hit a dome, instead of actually smash it into billions of pieces. So I'm a video editor as well by trade, as well as many other things, man of many talents, probably master of none. So here is the actual footage. It says hitting the dome. Watch this, I want to show you something clever in a sec. So this is it, 3, 2, 1, and bang, suddenly it stops spinning very fast, and that's when they say it hits the dome. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of editing trick here. So that is it there, where I played it from. So it hits the dome. Let's go along. We're going to, just bear with me. We're just going to go past where it hits the dome and then slows down. So all I've done is now got rid of that spinny bit. Now, you remember it said 3, 2, 1. Now I've gone right back to when the actual thrusters were happening with that different text. So you're going to see a cut between there with that text and they're fading out. So if you ignore the text and just watch the footage. Ready? So my computer went slower there, but I'll play it one more time. Sorry, my computer's slow. There you go. So you see what's happened here is they cut the video, and unfortunately they made people fall for it. Obviously we've got no other rockets hitting the dome except for this one. So when you realise that you can edit that in 2 seconds to make it look like, so basically they chopped out a period, maybe 45 seconds to a minute, they've chopped out, which would have slowed the rocket down into the less spinny, because obviously the thrust wasn't going anymore, and eventually it settles to a slower spin. So they've cut that out and made people fall for it. Obviously I didn't, because you should always follow outer history if you want the true history. So there you go. I'm just showing you once again, there is no proof of a dome. It's just someone using a bit of their imagination on how to trick people. I hope that helps. Third part of the Book of Revelations that I'm hinting towards the full version, which will be on my Patreon page, documentary coming soon. However, let's look here. We're talking about diadem crowns, and people's going to say, but comets can't have diadem crowns. Go watch the other 2 videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. Turns out diadem is a thing that is in comets. It's basically a gem which would shine, which is why it would look like crowns on it. Now, going back to the horns, this is what modern astronomers have found, that a comet has grown horns. So in other words, it's not always going to be round. This is due to volcanic action. So therefore we've now got the horns also from the Revelations. And let's just have a look at a little bit about dragons. So who was a dragon? Tiamat was a dragon. This is after it had been smashed up, so bits were flying all over the place. And then there's a bit here where it says, for 3 years and 3 months, 1 day and 1 night, the blood of the dragon flowed. That's because it's a comet and had a tau.